Hi there! So here's my old block of FIMO. This is about 10 years old, and as you can see it's pretty crumbly and kind of hard to use. You can't really sculpt anything with this. So here's how I recondition my FIMO. Now first I just want to say, this is only for FIMO. This will not work for Sculpey, and it may not work for other brands too, just because they have a different formulation. So what you need for this is, got my cutting mat here just to protect my work surface, and I'm going to cover that with some newspaper just to protect the cutting mat. Okay, I've also got a plastic bag here, and I've just reinforced that with a couple of layers of sellotape just to give it a bit of extra strength. You also need a hammer, some scissors that you don't mind getting a bit of clay on, a spray bottle of water. If you have distilled water, use that, otherwise tap water will work just fine. And for the cleanup, either isopropanol or an isopropanol based hand sanitizer. Okay, I'm just going to place a piece of paper there to hold the clay. So what you're going to do is chop your clay up. I'm going to take just as much as I need for my current project, and you're just going to chop that up into small pieces. I think ideally if you grated this it would probably work better, but FIMO isn't non-toxic, so I don't recommend grating it if you don't have a separate grater you can use just for this technique, and cutting it works just fine anyway. Okay, there you go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour that into the bag here. Okay, I'm now going to give this a couple of squirts of water. Okay, and now you're going to just hammer the heck out of this thing. Okay, we're now going to check. At this stage it's really helpful to have gloves. I just don't have any at the moment, so I'm going to go in this manually. I'm just going to try to gather that all up. Okay, so you can see so far it's softened a bit, but it's still quite lumpy and still quite hard to knead. So depending on how firm you like your clay, you can add a bit more water at this stage. I might add just a little bit more. And then you're just going to keep going back to hammering, kneading to test the consistency, hammering, kneading again until you get it to the consistency that you like. So ideally you want to hammer this as flat as possible, and that way you can hammer out all the lumps as well. Okay, so I've hammered it out quite nice and flat here, and that should have helped to remove a lot of the lumps. And let's test and see. Okay, go. So I think that's starting to get to a nice consistency. I do like to have it a little bit on the firmer side, just so that way you don't lose the details. It does tend to distort pretty easily if you make it very soft. Okay, so that would need a little bit more kneading, maybe a bit more hammering just to remove any extra lumps. And that's how I recondition my FIMO. Now as you can see, my hands are kind of blue now, so what I use for this is some of the isopropanol sanitizer. So we just apply that, and then it will just dissolve all the clay off your hands really easily. So like that, and then you can just wash the rest off with soap and water. It's very good for getting the bits of clay out of your nails, so I do recommend having some of the isopropanol sanitizer there. Okay, so here's what I have after several rounds of hammering and kneading. So I've got to the point where it's kind of stretchy, but it's also firm enough to maintain its shape. And again, if you like it softer, just add more water and keep hammering. So there you go. Like I said, I do recommend only doing as much as you need for your current project. Here's some clay I actually reconditioned, well, some leftover clay from my roll board, and as you can see it's already gone kind of crumbly again, and that was only about a week ago. Again, if you want to reuse your bag, you can just use some of the straight isopropanol to clean out the inside, and that way you can reuse your bag. And then do make sure you store these in something airtight and away from heat and strong sunlight. Thanks for watching. Hana, matana.